I've converted. Nobody needs to see that. Right, so what was it, Gareth? It was switch the mouse on, off and on to get it to start. Shrink this down and go to VT. And then turn up the volume.
So we'll go to the okay. Turn the slides?
You can do.
No, the institute's a bit dark.
It's all right. Just for the video. Just for the video. Yeah. So here's an example of what happens when planning goes wrong.
I've told you how pleased I was with your CV, and then I came on to actually look at the proposal that you're pitching for Lord Sugar, and frankly, it's a bloody disgrace. It's a bloody disgrace. The 10 years I've done this, I've never seen something that's put together 2 bloody pages with pictures on 1 page. What do you think you're coming here for? What do you think you're coming here for? You can leave. Goodbye.
Can I argue can I say?
There's nothing to argue. You give me pictures of sailboats. You give me pictures of sailboats. What am I going to work on? Pictures of sailboats? What is that? What is that?
That's legged, yeah, legged.
You're taking the piss. Please leave. That's not the way out.
So, Lottie, can you explain the business idea that you would like Lord Sugar to invest £250,000 in?
Absolutely. So it is a members club for ladies of the countryside, generally socially elite, that's my target market. We organise monthly events such as sporting, shooting and equestrianism.
So you say in your application to be part of the process, my profit plans are in-depth and vast. Where are they?
They are not currently in my business plan.
Are they somewhere else and you forgot to put them in?
Yes, they are.
Really?
Yes, genuinely.
You just forgot to put them in there?
Yes.
I'm really interested that you forgot to put your numbers in, because that sounds to me like the dog ate my homework.
It is very poor.
Are you serious about looking for investment, or is this just a game?
Yes. Yes, what happens when you forget to put your numbers in and you don't know your plan? So hopefully today we'll be looking at and creating a business plan that gives you a route map. Gareth, how do I get this back up? There we go, fabulous, thank you. So we'll be going through the business planning part of this document. So at the back there is a My Growth Planner, okay, and each one of these sections we will cover in depth through the year. But today what we're going to do is give you a sort of top-down overview and a way to get started, okay? So before you sort of delve into each individual activity or action, you'll have an overview of what you're trying to achieve. Okay, so the steps that we're going through this year are all there. Those are all the topics and the areas that we'll be touching on through the year in more depth, but you can ask us about them as we go, as you get to them, as you have questions in your collaboration sessions, but we will be focusing on each one of those sections every month as we go through as a topic. So, at the top of this page is a URL which takes you to signalbizhub.org/MGP. It will ask you to put in your details, but Gareth will send you a link where you don't have to put in your details, okay? But it's the same document. It's a PDF. It's based on the Business Model Canvas book that Emma wrote, and it details all of these various bits and pieces in a bit more detail than is in this document, but not as in detail as we will go through every month. What I would like to do today is we have a sheet we will hand out at the break. I'm going to go through this quite quickly, but in the second half we'll go through it a little slower and you can fill it out. I think is worth going through twice, because the second time you will have already started to think about the answers to some of the questions. So don't think, I've got to understand all this the first way through, because it's not going to go in. You can relax, take it on board, have a break, come back, and we'll do it all with the sheet and filling it all in. And then we'll continue that into the afternoon if you're staying. Understand? All makes sense? Good. If there are any questions, please put your hand up. If it's going to start getting into a bit of a discussion, I'll pause it and we'll skip on, but I'll come back to you when we can have a bit more of a one-to-one. Fantastic. Okay, so business planning. It's always one of those things where people sort of have different concepts of it. As you saw there in those clips, not putting your numbers in is perhaps a fundamental error, but where do you start? All business plans will depend entirely on your business. Yeah, they are all as independent as you are and all as individual as you are. But where do you start? You've got to start somewhere, and knowing where you want to go is where you start. So, where are you going? That's the fundamental question you need to ask. What are you trying to achieve with your business, with your plan, with your lifestyle? Knowing that can help, because unless you can say where you want to go, how can you plan a route to it? Okay, it's just all up in the air, question marks, scratching heads. And that's usually where I see the problem, is people haven't defined a clear enough goal. Once you have a clearly defined goal and you know what you're doing, you can then create a plan. Okay? So you start with the end in mind. Now, that again is as individual as you and may vary. You might decide that you want a long plan. You might decide that you only want a month's plan. But you've got to put a plan in place that you can then work to give you focus. Makes sense so far, yeah? Easy. So first thing you need to do is identify your business goals. You might think to yourself, right, well, there's 10 years till retirement. How do I break it down to get to where I need to get to so that I can have a retirement that I want? I think it's fair to say that quite a lot of business owners don't really retire. They get their hands slapped away from the controls and told to go and spend time on the golf course, or they reduce their hours, but they sort of keep their hand in. That's fine. It's absolutely fine. But you need to make a decision as to what your business goal is going to be. It could be that you want to sell the business. So what do you need to do to get to the point where the business is in a saleable condition? Because I can guarantee you, when somebody comes and looks at your business, if you are still an integral cog in the machine, you won't sell it. No business investor is going to come and buy a job. Okay? So that's a different plan, because you need to put in various things to employ people or outsource. You might have an income level that you want to hit. Again, absolutely fine. In a year's time, I want to hit a turnover of X, or I want to be taking Y out of the business for my own personal income. Again, the plan suits the goal. Achievements, turnover, profits. Okay, so when we come back to this with the sheet, you'll be writing down your goals. And it's fine to have several different goals. But if you look at those goals and they're all pulling in different directions, you maybe have to rationalise and refine. The second part that you need. Good morning, Dave. We've got your seat at the front. Yeah. The second part you'll need to put in place, if you are going to put a plan together, is how long it's going to take. Okay? By putting in a timescale, you give yourself a fighting chance of understanding how close or how far away you are from that goal as you progress. Yeah? So you need the goal and you need the timescale. You can make a reasonable guesstimate. You know, what is it they say, man plans and God laughs? No business plan ever survived contact with a customer, all of those things. But you will need to put in a fairly reasonable idea of how long it's going to take you, so you can tell whether or not your plan is moving you forward. So you identify your timescale, and the plan might be a section of your overall plan. Okay, we're not going to worry about the big one, because if I hit this plan, it's a part of the overall process. So it can be a monthly plan, it can be a quarterly plan, medium term, long term, it doesn't matter. But you certainly need to put in place this is what I'm going to try and achieve by this time. Because it then keeps you accountable. The businesses I see succeed is where people put in audacious, big, hairy, audacious goals, where they go, right, I'm going to achieve this by this date. And what usually happens is, I have a conversation with the person, they say, oh, we missed it. And you say, you know, what do you mean you missed it? Well, you know, we missed it by about this much. So they're feeling bad, but when they look and you point out, well, actually, you made massive progress and you might have missed the actual target, but you got very close to it and you're closer to your overall goal, that's what drives things forward. Not just turning up on a Monday going, oh, what do I do today? Again, on the sheet, we will write it down. The old question, how do you eat an elephant? One mouthful at a time. That applies here because once you've got your goal and you've got your time scale, you need to then create your plan. And that's where the planning comes in. Okay? Goal, time scale, you can then create a plan. If you're sitting down trying to plan and you don't have those two things, you'll wander round and round in circles, scratching your head, and you'll put down some vague things that you want to do, and you won't have a plan. You'll just have a to-do list, a task list. And all of this underpins everything you want to do from this point on, because you can ask yourself a very fundamental question. Will what I am attempting to achieve right now get me closer to my goal or not? If it isn't, and it's on your to-do list, don't do it. Simple as. If there's something that's on your to-do list that doesn't move you closer to the timescale, deadline, and goal, just forget it. Outsource it. Get rid of it. You don't need to do it. It might not need to be done, but it gives you a really quick filter as to what you do on a daily basis. So you break it into chunks. You put down your project outcome or goal, and you put in your timescale, and you say, right, if I'm going to achieve this by that point, what do I need to do on a recurring, weekly, daily basis to move me closer to that goal? And again, that will change depending on your business, on your goals, and your timescale. So this isn't about telling you to do something specific. This is about identifying what it is you need to do. Okay, and we can talk about that again in the collaboration session if you want. And I've got some examples, so we'll come back to it at the end. A lot of times people talk about SMART goals. Hit your hands up if you've heard of SMART goals. Yeah, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timed. Okay, we'll skip through these quite quickly because I think most people know them. But these parameters around your goals let you know whether or not you're actually doing the things that matter in even more detail than does it move me closer to my goals, and allows you to maybe order the different things that you're doing or outsourcing. The one that usually most people miss out on is the measurable bit. Okay, you need to have some kind of way of measuring your progress. We'll touch on that in a second. And it needs to be achievable. I mean, it's great putting in an audacious, hairy goal, but ultimately, you know, you have to be realistic because we all want, you know, massive growth and big success. But if the marketplace or the opportunity isn't there, you will struggle. Okay, so it's about some realistic assessment of what you're facing as well. And that might mean you need to go away and do some research, and that's great. But then that gives you the task you need to do. I need to do this research to see whether or not my goal is actually achievable. One of the things that people don't talk about is fast goals. Who's heard of fast? No, a lot of people heard of SMART, but not fast. So fast is a quick way of making sure that your goals are on target. Okay, so when you've put down your goals, review them frequently. Okay, at the end of every week, at the end of every month, what did we achieve? What specific things did we do to make what we wanted to happen this month? Okay, you can be ambitious. Yeah, you can push yourself. You can say, right, well, it's working. Why don't we double the pace and bring the goal closer? Just because you've put a goal in place and you've put a time scale on it, doesn't mean to say you have to stick to it if it's working. One of the things that we've seen in Signal is actually what we put in place worked so well that we've brought forward plans and we've increased the efforts we're putting into it. And one of the problems we have discussed is unexpectedly bigger success than you expected. Quite often as business owners, we go, right, well, we're going to do this. I'm going to be a realist. I'm not going to get my hopes too much. And you go, oh my God, there's lots of things need to be done. And it can put you off balance. So give it a realistic look at, but be ambitious with your goals. Yeah. Make them specific. This again is the numbers question. A lot of times when I ask business owners the numbers, they don't know them. Okay. We're coming up to the end of the personal tax year and the end of the business tax year. A lot of the times, that's only the time where people look at their numbers. And if you are only reviewing your business numbers on a yearly annual basis, then you're effectively driving your car from not the back seat, but the boot, because you're blind to everything and you don't know what you're doing and how it's working. And if you don't know what you're doing is working, how can you improve it? And how do you know you're actually hitting your goals? It might be uncomfortable to have to sit there and realise the stark truth that you didn't do what you needed to do, and in actual fact you've slipped backwards or you haven't made the profit you want, and there might be a cash shortfall. But then you know the problem. You can't fix a problem unless you know it, and ultimately as business owners we have to be realists. This is the situation we find ourselves in. These are the resources we have access to. This is the opportunities that are out there. Clearly defining those things helps to reduce the risk of making wrong decisions. So having a realistic vision of what is actually happened rather than the, fuzzy kind of warm ignorance of, well, I'm sure it's fine, there seems to be money in the bank, keep my fingers crossed approach, it just won't work, because you will never know actually if what you're actually doing is having an outcome until months and months and months later, at which point you can't tie that outcome to any specific measurable action. Is this making sense? That if you've got numbers, concrete numbers, right, if I do this, I have that outcome. Therefore, if I double this, will it have double the outcome? Let's try. Right, what's the goal? What's the plan? Yeah? And it's having those numbers, knowing those numbers, having an intimate relationship with those numbers if you want, but having those numbers to hand. We're doing it with Jumpstart January. Every day we're talking about, oh, have you seen the sign-ups? We've got it on our phone. What's the sign-ups? What's the sign-ups? But we know that by knowing that number of people who signed up from last year, we have a conversion funnel. We know that this amount of people signed up, which meant this number of people turned up, which meant this amount of people signed up, which gives us a projection for our business. Now, if something breaks along that, like I say, we make plans, God laughs. If something breaks, you can then look at that thing and go, what was the thing that broke? What was the reason that that didn't happen? We know, for instance, when we did Petersfield last year, we had a great turnout. We had people saying that they loved it, and then we didn't get any sign-ups from that event. Big head scratcher. We had sign-ups from all the other events. Why was it that one? Was it me doing a presentation? So we looked at that. No, we kind of did it the same way every time. What we found out was that our capture for the audience was Petersfield down to the south coast, and people didn't want to travel the last 15 minutes because they had in their head it was perhaps a lot further. Oh, Borden, I don't know where that is. So in your head, you automatically think, oh, it's much further away than you expect. So this year we've got a map and we're putting the timings that, from this event to the Signal hub, Biz Hub, is 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Because it can make people a vast difference to people's attitudes if they, oh yeah, I can turn up. I know it's only going to be 10 more minutes on my journey. I'm prepared to do that. So we're already trying to stop and prevent those objections that people either say or don't say to us. But again, that's knowing the numbers. That's being able to create a plan based on the numbers. And sometimes if you do something the first time, you won't know the numbers. Okay, I'm going to have to do this. Keep your fingers crossed. I see it all the time with e-commerce businesses. Start asking them about their conversion funnel. Where's your advert start? Where does it go from there? What are your landing pages? What are your sales? and they don't know these numbers. Or they do it once and go, oh, it doesn't work. Right, okay, you mean you did it and it didn't work, because there's plenty of other people it is working for that are getting it right. But it's a refining process. Yeah? So you make your plan, you make specific measurable outcomes over a time span, and then you monitor it. You don't get to the end of it in 6 months' time or a year's time and go, how do we do? It's monitoring it as you go that allows you to tweak and change your outcomes because of the feedback that you have the data on to be able to look at it. And it might be a bit nerdy and a bit dull, but every single successful entrepreneur that we've had here knew their numbers. Nigel from Games Quest, you know, he said, I'm a self-confessed games nerd, but he knows intimately his business and his marketplace and his customers and his numbers. And that gives him a much greater control over what is my outcome going to be if I do this. And as you go and you build your business and you get more data and you're able to predict with more confidence, it gives you the ability to focus on the tasks that matter and just get rid of everything else. Also, and this is the bit where accountability comes in, you have to be transparent with your goals. It's no point holding a goal. We do this as small business owners all the time. There's two reasons we do this. One, we're quite isolated. You know, you're living and working in your little bubble and you don't get out there much, but you have a goal and you've got it in your head and you think that's great. Oh, I might even write it down. And you write it down, but you don't tell anyone because, well, you know, I might fail. And that might be a bit awkward and people might say, oh, failure, and walk up and down the street pointing at me saying, you big failure. And that's all going on in our head, and that's not what's actually happening, because most people are in their own little bubble and they don't really care. But if you've got people who are actually saying, these are your goals, great, that's fantastic, and asking you about them and encouraging you to stick to them and saying, why is this not working? Let's sit down and focus and review it, whether it's a team member, whether it's a wider support network like Signal. That's the only thing that's going to keep you on focus, because we get to choose our day pretty much, apart from customers getting in the way. We get to choose what we do. So sometimes, you know, if it's not going so well, you might choose to go and have a coffee at Starbucks and, you know, turn the world off, and that's fine. But you need somebody there saying to you, come on, we need to get this done. You need to get this done. What's going on here? Because a lot of the times the blocks are up here. We see it in Mastermind. I'm not going to name any names. What happens in Mastermind stays in Mastermind. But you all know that when you hit a block and somebody challenges you, all of the excuses and the reasons and the yeah buts come out, when actually you're accountable for your actions. If it's not going the way you want it to go, what are you going to do about it? Ultimately, that's it, the backstop. Yeah? If it's going to be, it's up to me. So you've got to write all of that down and make sure that you communicate it with a team member. The other thing we're great at doing as small business owners is having an idea, and unfortunately nobody else can read our mind. And then you get annoyed because the other person just didn't know what you were talking about. Oh, but you didn't tell me. How dare you? I once had a staff member say to me, Stuart, he said, you've got such a strong internal dialogue that I think you think that people can hear it. And I do. And why can't you? That's your failure, not mine. But it really gave me a shock because it was true. It was like, yeah, I do that all the time. I look at a situation and I just expect everybody else to see it the same way, and they don't, because they're coming to it with their own expectations. So be as transparent as you need to be. And the reason I'm labouring this point is it is a big one to get over, that when you've got a really dearly held goal, you don't want to share it. In fact, it's a really precious little thing, and as soon as you put it out into the big wide world, everybody else will rip it to shreds. But that's what it needs. That's what it needs. It needs proofing out in the real world that it works. The fourth thing you need to do is to look at resources. What resources are you going to need to achieve in your plan? So you've written down what you want to achieve, you've written around when you want to achieve it, you've told a few people, this is what I'm going to achieve, and this is the timescale I'm going to achieve it in. You're going to have to think about what resources are you going to need to achieve it. Of course, the big one is time and money, but what personnel? Do you perhaps need to go and do some research, training? Do you need equipment? Do you need to hire some workspace if you're going to expand, if you're going to grow, if you're going to need more people or time? What is the shape and size of this plan from every aspect? Are you going to need more of something? If you're going to need more of something, write it down and start to put some numbers against it. It doesn't have to be completely 100% accurate, because sometimes predictions don't come true. But you should be putting your best effort into it, going away, asking other business owners, I want to do this. You're in a very similar sort of business. What do you think? Do you think that's reasonable? Am I anywhere close? And having those close people to you who can give you honest feedback, not what your family does, which is, yeah, I'm sure it'll be great. Yeah, it sounds fantastic. Now shut up and pass the cream sauce. But the support network that you have can help you vastly when it's about predicting, especially with experience. It will give you the confidence to be more focused around what you do, to be more confident about what you do. The final one is, we've all had this. We've either said it or had it said to us, Mum or Dad, are we here? Are we there yet? You need that feedback loop. Okay? There's no point in putting the goal in place and putting the plan in place and breaking it down into bite-sized chunks and understanding all the resources you need if you've not got a way of understanding how close to it you're sticking. We spoke about knowing your numbers. You need to have a dashboard that you can quickly refer to, that you keep regularly updated. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can just be a spreadsheet. There was one business owner I knew, and they analysed their business, and they got it down to an understanding that they would hit their goal if they made 3 outbound sales phone calls a day. Okay? And that was not even connecting with the end user. That was just 3 phone calls. If they did 3 phone calls, that would have enough of an effect that they would eventually have enough positive sales conversations that would get them to where they needed to get to. So of course, they doubled it. Yeah? If I can do 3 phone calls, I'm sure I can do 6 phone calls, especially when it was a team of 4 people. So they did 3 phone calls each, and then suddenly sales exploded. When they had that understanding of the activity that was a key driver, that made all the difference. It made them, their plan, a concrete action every day that was understandable. And they used to have a competition to see who could get the 3 phone calls done as quickly as possible, you know? And that makes life interesting, a little bit gamification, as they call it. It allows you to know what you're doing is working and how you're progressing, and keeps you on track. Again, communicate this with people. If it's not going the way you want it to go, tell someone, this isn't working the way I wanted it to work. Why? I don't know. Okay, so that's the question. Why isn't this working? Let's look at it. Again, support network, team members, people you trust. In your report, knowing those numbers that matter to the outcome is fundamental. Yeah, it can be the budget you've spent, the hours you've spent on it, the targets in place, maybe they're sales targets, the conversions. A lot of times people talk about conversions in relation to websites. What's your conversion rate? But every sales funnel, it doesn't matter what business you're in, whether you're online or offline, you have a conversion rate. And your conversion rate happens at every time the customer moves down the sales funnel. So writing out your sales journey for your customer, they have a need, they do a search, they pick up the phone, we have a conversation. Each one of those has a conversion point. Yeah, some people might decide to to buy from you, some people might not. Okay, so that's a conversion rate. How do we improve that? What do I put in place so that more people say yes to the next step? Quite often, we've done a lot of conversion optimization on websites. Quite often, we see a very wide funnel at the top and a very tiny funnel at the bottom. And it shelves off quite steeply at one point. So it's going down nice and smooth. And then that's the broken part. Okay, so why is this broken? Could be a technical reason. Could be a fundamental reason that the person doesn't like what you're saying on the phone or your accent. You know, there are many different reasons, and sometimes they're socially awkward to have somebody have to say it to you. Again, that's why you need a team of people and people around you that can say, actually, Stu, when you're on the phone, you're a bit kind of curt with them. I'm just being direct and sharp. Yeah, but they want fuzzy Stu, not bad cop Stu. Okay, all right. You can say I've had that said to me. So I'm going to give you 3 examples because goals, as I say, vary depending on your business and what you're trying to achieve. And different people will need different goals at different points. And just because you've written one goal down doesn't mean to say that you can't review it, revise it and go back to it. And the document you download, the business model canvas, actively gets you to put this somewhere that you can look at it and to revisit at regular intervals. Okay. So example number 1, a financial goal. So you might decide that you want a turnover or profit increase. So you need to know what your turnover or profit is at that point. Now you'll look at your conversion rate through the funnel, the sales funnel, and you might decide that, well, we've got 100 customers and we want a 20% increase in our turnover, so we need 20 new customers. Well, that gives you quite a decent goal to point at because you're like, okay, so what do we have to do to get 20 new customers? What is our conversion rate at the moment? Is there something we could improve in what we're already doing and get those 20 customers? Or do we have to go out and find new customers? Again, your fundamental questions about your goal and your planning. So if it was you had to go and get 20 new customers and you know that from the numbers that you have in your dashboard, to get 100 customers takes 10,000 sales pieces. That could be leaflets, adverts, phone calls. But you need 10,000 of those things to happen to get 100 customers. Well, you need 120,000 of them to happen to get that 20 more customers. So it gives you some very clear, definite targets to aim at. And it's not always the case. Conversion rates slow down, yeah, as you saturate the local market and you have all of the customers that you're going to be getting. You might need to widen your network. You always get the low-hanging fruit, the people that are ready to convert. Do you need to maybe nurture people so that they hear about you earlier in their quest to find an answer to their problem, so that you pick up people earlier in their sales journey? Is there a part of the sales journey that you don't know about yet? Okay, so that's where market research comes in. So you can improve or scale the sales funnel when you know the numbers, you know the activities that produce those numbers, and you can then write down a list of tasks, your plan, to get there. So that's a financial goal. Those are usually the ones that business owners will focus on, but there are others. There might be a project goal. So within your overall plan to increase your numbers, you might think to yourself, actually, to get people at the earlier part of this sales funnel, I need to write a book because they're doing all this research. And if I positioned myself with a book, they would come across me earlier on. And at the point where they're starting to think that, we need somebody to solve that problem, I've written the book on it, they're much more likely to get in touch. That doesn't apply to all businesses. Yeah, retail business might be slightly different, but this is just an example of a project timescale plan. So you might think to yourself, okay, if I write a book, how long does it need to be? That's the usual first question that will pop up. You know, what constitutes a book, a report, a pamphlet, or a guide? Best way, go to Amazon, have a look at the bestsellers in your niche or field and see roughly how many pages there are in that book. Most business books are between 40 and 50,000 words, the smaller ones. You can get bigger ones, obviously. So you might think to yourself, right, okay, so the best-selling books in my niche, 150 pages long, which on average each page is 300 words, so that's 45,000 words. So I've got to write a book that's 45,000 words long. So you might start and give yourself a bit of a test, and you realise that actually by the time you've written the words, edited them down, you can hit about 750 words a day. So you're going to need 60 hours to achieve your goal. So if you did an hour a day, that's 60 days. You might exclude weekends and go, right, in 75 days, I am just going to write and write and write so that I know when I get to the end of it, I've got roughly the amount of words I need with a little bit of editing and I've got my book. So you don't have to worry about the big goal because your actions every day are contributing to it. And that's how to break down maybe a goal within your bigger goal. Those right actions every day get me to where I need to get to. I know several authors actually, and every single one of them, when they did get to the end of their book, had this very target every day. I'm going to write X amount of words every day for so many days. Whether or not it's garbage or rubbish, I just don't care. I'm going to hit this target. And then they found that actually when they finished the book, they'd already got part of another book written because they'd excluded the stuff that didn't quite fit, and it gives them a good start for the next one. And actually it becomes a kind of repeating process. A bit of a diversion there, but it gives you an idea of how to take a project and break it down into the actions you need to do every day to achieve it. The final example is a little bit more of a amorphous, unfocused goal, especially in the creative field. It can be difficult, to create concrete outcomes. You might just want to improve your lifestyle. Okay, if you've got a lifestyle business or you've got a business which, I don't want to grow it and sell it, Stuart. I don't need goals. Yeah, but you want a lifestyle. You want to improve your lifestyle. Yeah. You need to know that the marketplace is changing all the time, so you need an action plan to keep yourself out there and relevant. So you might look at what your ideal life looks like. Okay? It might be that that's your goal. I only want to work so many hours every day, and I only want to work with these people, and I only want to work in this area, and I only need this amount of money to come in, and as long as I'm doing X, Y, or Z every day, I'm going to be hitting my goals. So it doesn't actually have to be hard and fast and concrete if your business is less than hard and fast and concrete. Yeah, there's a lot of people aren't interested in conquering worlds and selling businesses, but you still need a goal. You still need a plan. When you get up in the morning and your feet hit the carpet, what are you going to do? If you're making it up on the spot, it's going to be much less focused and much less likely to happen because the chances of you repeating the right actions over and over and over again for the right number of days to hit your goals, much less likely. And I really like a biopic, a documentary, or something about somebody's life. And one of the common threads between all of the people that have succeeded is they did the actions and repeated the actions over and over and over again and learnt from their mistakes and improved as they went along. But they stuck at it. And that's what you're going to need to do to achieve your goals and implement your plan, is sticking at it, of doing those right actions over and over again and making sure that your feedback loops feed back into the learning of what you've done and how it is working and how it is progressing. So the growth planner will have all of this in it. The document that we have here is the kind of the planning document. I would suggest you maybe photocopy it, and start scribbling on it and start thinking about it, download the PDF and read up and how that fits in with there. And then with what we've got today, that will feed the thinking around how you're going to implement those tasks. So there's no point in just doing social media, but if your social media is meeting an element of your plan, then that's great, because you're going to achieve what you want to achieve. And it might be that you need to go out on social media now, and that's the focus. Great. Okay, well, let's focus on that. Let's think about that. How are you going to implement an activity around that? What is your goal with that, and how do you achieve it? So the first 3 months this year are planning, delivering value, and ideal customers. So I'm going to touch on the first, we're doing planning now, but I'm going to touch on the February and March months, just so you get an understanding of how it fits in, because these two are really important when you're planning. If you don't know these two pieces of the puzzle, it can be incredibly difficult for you to implement a longer term business plan without it. So the first one is delivering value. Value is a kind of strange word. It means different things to different people. I'm going to define it here as the benefit that your business brings to your customer. That's what they value. They're not buying what you do, they're buying the outcome of what you do. Yeah, the old classic, nobody buys a drill, they want a hole in the wall. It's that. Okay, so you have to define that. And if you don't know it, go and ask your customers. Yeah, go and have a conversation with them previously. People who've spent money with you previously. You know, why did you buy from us? What was it? Was it timely? Was it quality? Was it price? It's going to be around one of those things. But it just might have been convenience. Oh, you answered the phone. Great. Okay, so people appreciate me jumping on the phone quickly. How can I do that? What can I put in place to make that happen quicker? And the benefits of what you do. Okay, the example that I can give you makes it kind of very clear. If you go to buy a car, and let's say you're somebody who wants safety. Safety is at the top of your list. It's no good going and being sold about a sports car and how fast it is and all the rest of it when you're buying safety. So the salesman might say, well, it's got ABS brakes. You haven't got a clue what ABS brakes means. So he breaks it down. That's a feature. Take it from a feature to a benefit. It's got ABS brakes, which means that. So if you have a feature and you want to know the benefit, just tag on the words, which means that, and the bit you say after it, that's the benefit. ABS brakes, which means that the car is going to stop in slippery conditions or is more safe. Oh, great. And that's then for the value that the person puts on that car is this is a safe car, it's got great brakes. So it doesn't have to be the high-level feature. It has to be the fundamental benefit that the customer values. And knowing who you provide it for, we'll get to that in a second. Different customers have different values. Like I say, if I walk into a car dealer and I'm looking for a specific type of car, it's no good them trying to sell me a sports car. I've got 4 in our family. It's a 2-seater sports car. A couple of people need to sit on the roof. And understanding what value you deliver over your competitors. Don't be afraid to go and mystery shop your competitors. Go and have a look at their website. Go and give them a phone call. Ask a friend to go and buy something from them. We've been doing some mystery shopping with some e-commerce stores over the Christmas period, seeing how quickly things turn up, seeing what comes in the post, in the package. And it's clear that some people just dump it in a bag and send it. You know, they might be doing big numbers, but it feels very impersonal. If you've asked for a present and it turns up and it's just dumped in a polythene bag, it feels a bit impersonal. So what can you do, if one customer wants a present and one customer just wants the functional thing, doesn't really care if it's dumped in a bag as long as it turns up, and differentiating those two customers and giving them, like when you're shopping on Amazon, is this a gift? And they will put in a gift receipt, etc. You're helping that person make a buying decision which goes, yeah, if they don't like it, they can at least get something they do like. So one of the examples within the Biz Hub is our market is small business owners in the local area, and you have several pain points, as you probably know. 2 key problems are isolation and ignorance. Getting out of the house, meeting people, that can be a problem. Not knowing the things you don't know. It's not even, I don't know that, but I've got to learn about it. It's, oh my God, I don't even know that I needed to know that. These are all business critical if not addressed, and the small business likely struggle and fail. So we're going to get you to write some of your answers down and start thinking about that section. And the final one that I want to touch on today is ideal customers. Okay, creating any kind of business plan should come under the subset of knowing who your customer is. Okay, because if you know who your customer is, you can much better market and sell and do all the functions of your business around your customer. Does this give my customer what they want? Okay, so I talked about that earlier in regards to your business plan. Is this task moving me closer to my goal, yes or no? Well, is this task likely to give my customer what they want, yes or no, is also another great question to ask. And is it one customer or several? You know, do you have different segments? One customer wants to buy now, one customer just wants a long-term commitment, another customer is a premium customer. Identifying what makes it so for each customer can really change the price, because if you're one price fits all, you're missing a trick. You should be looking at the value you bring. And the BizHub example is not everyone is a customer. Not everyone who walks through that door is right for the hub, is right for Signal. And being able to give them what they want and almost get rid of them quickly so we're not wasting their time and they're not wasting our time, that's why you understand your customer, so they're identified. We know that our customers, they actively want to grow their business, they want to be accountable, and they want support. So that's the BizHub example. Again, we're going to get you to write that down. So in the steps that we've identified in the planner, we're here, getting started, planning for success, creating goals, looking at results. We've touched on these two because they kind of feed into the planning example. So what we're going to do is go away, have a cup of tea, have a lot to think about. I can see a lot of blank faces, meaning that the brain is ticking over. And we'll hand out the worksheet. And when we come back, we'll go all the way back to the start, and we will go through it, and you will start on specific examples for your business. Sound good? Yes. See you in a bit.